The Elder Scrolls is a franchise that stems far back to the early 90s, with the success of their first title, The Elder Scrolls Arena. TES, as it's often abbreviated, has continued to be successful as a franchise with Skyrim, which launched in 2011 and has gone on to be one of the most successful games of all time. Elder Scrolls would feature an MMO launch in 2016, which is what you guys are used to hearing me go on about. That MMO, or more aptly named and multiplayer online RPG, is still kicking and doing quite well. Instead, the death that we are investigating today comes from another genre altogether. After Blizzard set the card gaming genre on fire with their CCG, or collectible card game entry, set to capitalize on the long-standing successes of MTG as a TCG, other players in the space were eager to grab some of that same success. Published by Bethesda Softworks and developed initially by Direwolf Digital, later Sparky Pants Studio, in November 2017, The Elder Scrolls Legends was Bethesda's response to Blizzard's Hearthstone success. Elder Scrolls Legends offered unique card mechanics to the scene, such as 2 lanes, one being a stealth lane, and a stronger focus than many collectible card games on PvE, or player versus environment content, aka single-player content. But despite high-profile trailers, Twitch drops, and integration, and the Elder Scrolls name featured, December of 2019, Bethesda announced that Elder Scrolls Legends development would be halted. Servers as of summer 2020 are still live, but with the fate of Elder Scrolls Legends inevitably laying with the gallows. What were the largest contributing factors in the game's failure? In this episode of Death of a Game, we will take a look at Bethesda's foray into the world of online CCGs while attempting to uncover the mystery behind the short-lived title. Stay tuned near the end of the episode for a final deduction featuring all the clues and evidence collected along the way. Whether you join the Blades, the Dark Brotherhood, or return to Clockwork City, or the Isle of Madness, welcome back to Tamriel. In the case of Elder Scrolls Legends, although the Elder Scrolls franchise spans back to the 90s, the origins of ES Legends, or Elder Scrolls Legends, is much more recent. If you want to learn more about the history of Elder Scrolls as an IP overall, watch the most comprehensive video on Elder Scrolls history, told by arguably the best Elder Scrolls guy, Indigo Gaming. Turning back the pages just a few years, and while I don't need to dedicate a section to how successful the Elder Scrolls Skyrim was, which launched in 2011 for both Bethesda and Elder Scrolls as a franchise. In 2015, it was reported that Skyrim had sold over 20 million copies. Meanwhile, in an entirely different genre, Blizzard, another Titan developer and publisher, was raking in successes of their own. The difference being, Blizzard's was far more renewable. There were only so many times you could sell Skyrim, right? 2015 was the year of Blizzard. Like they did with World of Warcraft and the MMORPG genre, they completely revitalized the card gaming market. With Hearthstone's polished, casual randomness and fun factor and focus, and the Blizzard/World of Warcraft lore and art, the game took the internet by storm, dominating the Twitch charts where it still reigns as a top 10 viewed game for a number of years. Now, it might not surprise anyone watching now in hindsight, but for the time, the announcement shown at Bethesda's E3 showcase in 2015 certainly caught a lot of people by surprise, including myself. And not in the best way necessarily. Elder Scrolls Legends, as dubbed and announced at E3 2015, was described as a free-to-play strategy card game set for the PC and iPad platforms, complete with a small teaser and the promise for more details at a later date. Elder Scrolls Legends development began back in 2013, according to Bethesda VP of Marketing Pete Hines, spearheaded by the studio Direwolf Digital, which featured former Magic the Gathering pros, aka the most popular trading game that we've mentioned a couple of times. According to Direwolf Digital, the process spanned 2 years further back to 2011, and sometimes that happens whenever a publisher is looking for a developer to work with. The independent game studio was founded the year prior in 2010 by Scott Martins, and after a year they had acquired the contract to work on Elder Scrolls Legends. Quite the catch for a new studio. An experienced group of TCG players and game developers with an assumed lucrative Bethesda contract and budget to boot, Elder Scrolls Legends in 2015 might be another interesting addition to the world of TCGs and CCGs. A year after being announced, the first closed beta for Elder Scrolls Legends would hit the web April 21st, 2016. Accompanying the closed beta announcement was a gameplay overview trailer for Elder Scrolls Legends. Battles in Elder Scrolls Legends consisted of a hand of 3 cards, with each player on their turn getting 1 magicka, which they would use to then play cards. There are 2 lanes in the game, one being the main lane and one being the stealth lane. Minions placed in the stealth lane are always stealth but can still be targeted by spells. Each player has a health pool which can then be damaged. If you lose enough health, you can trigger a wound which allows you to draw a card. This allows you to help swing the game back in your favor. If during this card draw you pull a prophecy card, you can play it immediately for free. This in a sense does add a little bit of that trademark card game randomness, but also maybe creates those comeback moments. Like many other CCGs in ES Legends, you also collected a number of cards to create a collection, but were unable to trade cards with other players. This is a key part of the game, as this is the majority of where the money comes from. Because you're not allowed to actually own the value of the card that you have yourself, you always have to be willing to break it down if you want another one. And when you break it down, you won't get the same amount of value that you would otherwise get had you traded the card. Hence the difference between a CCG and a TCG. Trading, collectible. More details for the game were teased, such as the variety of modes, including a main story mode which would serve as a tutorial, and a multiplayer arena mode, or kind of like a draft mode as most people would know it as. Website GameRant had the chance to play Elder Scrolls Legends during closed beta in April 2016 and had the following impressions. First, they mentioned the obvious elephant in the room being people will inevitably compare the game to Hearthstone. Some things such as the look and the fact that it's fantasy, the sounds and all that comes with it, can kinda make the game come across as samey at times. Still, that could be less to do with Elder Scrolls being generic, and more of a measured decision by Direwolf Digital in development. In closing, GameRant stated that Bethesda was working with a solid foundation for ESL, but that game at first felt too much like Hearthstone. Following a few months of both closed and open beta testing, Elder Scrolls Legends would announce their launch for Windows March 9th, 2017, with an iPad and Android tablet launch following by the end of the month. Elder Scrolls Legends might have had a quiet development cycle and a seemingly quiet closed beta and open beta cycle, but clearly Bethesda had dedicated a number of resources to pushing Elder Scrolls Legends out there. The official announcement of the launch by Bethesda also let out that they fully intended to reach mobile devices due to popular demand. But let's just be honest here, right? Demand or not, Hearthstone was raking in the cash on mobile devices, and Bethesda, who got involved in the genre after Hearthstone's success, was well aware of this fact. Bethesda would also announce the Elder Scrolls Legends would have its first expansion announced already, being dubbed The Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. The decision to monetize the game this early on was not strange for a free-to-play title, a multiplayer title, but also specifically a card game. Card games are typically built around the idea of a booster pack, or a pack of cards that are random with the chance for rare cards. These cost money to buy, and thus the precedent is set in TCGs or CCGs that you spend money to a certain extent to build your collection. It is at this point well accepted in the card game community. With more cards and content to come, as well as Twitch integration and a spectator mode, Elder Scrolls Legends was quickly shaping up to be a serious contender in the online CCG space. The Elder Scrolls Legends following its launch would score a respectable 80 out of 100 on aggregate review site Metacritic for the critics, while only scraping a mere 5.5 out of 10 on user ratings. PC Gamer, who rated the title 78 out of 100, highlighted the number of similarities between Hearthstone and Elder Scrolls Legends, but pointed out that there are small but important differences. As PC Gamer alludes to, Bethesda knew that there was an opportunity in the market with Hearthstone, and as Elder Scrolls Legends could be the more mature, dare I say competitive of the titles. In closing thoughts, PC Gamer writer Tim Clark stated that, which explains why I no longer think Legends is going to take a serious bite out of Hearthstone, at least not yet. Legends' more serious approach means it doesn't lend itself to those swashbuckler into sacrificial pack to kill Lord Jaraxxus moments that have turned the likes of Disguised Toast and Trollden into YouTube stars. This is never going to be a game of great memes, but what Legends does have are rock-solid systems and a clearly talented team of card designers who are responsive to feedback. On that basis, I'm optimistic that the 2 forthcoming expansions can at least shore up its position as a viable competitor with better deck diversity. IGN, who gave Elder Scrolls Legends a more favorable rating of 8.3 out of 10, also acknowledged the obvious similarities between Elder Scrolls Legends and Hearthstone. The difference being Legends seemed to borrow more from MTG than Hearthstone, such as the color system for decks. IGN and PC Gamer both weren't entirely impressed by the art and visual present in Elder Scrolls Legends, but more so interested in the mechanics of the game. They also agreed that the strongest differences in Elder Scrolls Legends being its dual lane format, with one of those lanes being the stealth lane. Cam Shia at IGN had this conclusion in their review.
The Elder Scrolls Legends may not be the most visually appealing CCG, but what it lacks in looks, it makes up for in modes, mechanics, and card design. This is well worth checking out for fans of the Elder Scrolls or digital card games in general. And like all great CCGs, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
Game Informer, who also reviewed the title, made it a point to state that perhaps ESL's biggest weakness is that it plays things just a bit too safe with many familiar features and mechanics alongside its own contributions, and may have a hard time carving out its own identity in a sea of competitive digital card games. All three major outlets highlighted in their review that although Elder Scrolls Legends bore the Elder Scrolls name, the game's aesthetics and art style in some respects came across as more generic fantasy than, as Game Informer put it, the feeling of exploring Morrowind or shouting at dragons. This is speculative, but good speculation. This is not uncommon to see when an established IP attempts to capitalize on their namesake and make a game in a new genre. It's difficult to make completely original Elder Scrolls art when it's A, not the focus, B, you don't have the original artist or team involved, and C, you don't have the same budget and possible time constraints. As promised, Bethesda and developer Direwolf Digital would launch their first expansion, Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, in April of 2017. The expansion would be priced at $20 and feature new solo PvE content, more than 20 missions spread across 3 maps, as well as 40 new cards. Bethesda typically likes to put their own games on their own platform first and foremost, and really any of the big companies kind of like to do this, before putting it on other platforms, the reasons being simply money, money, money. We can assume that due to how little buzz Elder Scrolls Legends launch generated, that Bethesda realized early on that although they had planned to transition to mobile, perhaps a transition on PC or maybe a pit stop to a new platform in Steam would be the right move going forward. Elder Scrolls Legends would launch on Steam May 31st, 2017. This is the first time the game would enter the Steam Matrix, which means we can track them to a certain extent using both Steam concurrent numbers and Steam Spy overall player numbers. Following the launch on Steam, Elder Scrolls Legends peaked at 8,781 players concurrently. Out of these players, roughly 74% were finding the game overall enjoyable, putting the game into the mostly positive category. 74% rating with under 9,000 players at peak concurrent might not have been enough to blow the doors off and not the most successful Steam launch, but this was an injection of much needed players in Elder Scrolls Legends. With Heroes of Skyrim expansion already announced and set for the end of June, ES Legends momentum was truly picking up for the first time. Heroes of Skyrim launched on June 29, 2017, and would include over 150 new cards and elements present in the ever-famous Skyrim. What better way to follow up the Dark Brotherhood in popularity than, well, Skyrim? Dragons! Steam population unfortunately had no increase, but instead took a near 50% drop in peak players at 4,475, with only 2,270 players on average. Not even the power of the dragons was enough to help bring in new players on that platform. Legends would finally launch on mobile devices July 27, 2017. Based on the reviews on both the Apple and Google stores for mobile devices, a decent amount of players had to have played the game. Unfortunately, metrics regarding the success of ES Legends on mobile were unavailable. The pivot to mobile can be seen as quite natural for a card game, especially one already following in the footsteps of Hearthstone and its transition of its success from PC to mobile. The problem was that ESL didn't have a core audience yet. Thus, not enough players were playing it consistently for it to make that kind of money required to continue the updates and expansions. Elder Scrolls Legends would keep chugging in spite of the less than stellar success thus far. There was enough quality in the game that was worth salvaging for many players. The Clockwork expansion, which brought a new story expansion and 55 cards, would launch on November 30th, 2017. The population would slightly rebound following the expansion, which featured the Elder Scrolls' favorite city of Clockwork. I made an interesting discovery during this part of the mystery, concerning Bethesda and their marketing and overall handling of Elder Scrolls Legends. If you notice, the trailers released for the game have so far been released on Bethesda's main channel, Bethesda Softworks. This is during Fallout 76, and it's very justified negative publicity, as well as it's, simply speaking, an entirely different audience. Players who enjoy CCGs or TCGs might also like Skyrim, but simply because Skyrim is so popular. But the Elder Scrolls fans aren't necessarily card game fans. As you can see from reading any of the comments or noticing the like to dislike ratio on some of the Elder Scrolls Legends ads. Bethesda not creating their own Elder Scrolls Legends YouTube channel by the end of 2017 is just, well, head-scratching. We have proof because Bethesda would later give Elder Scrolls Legends its own YouTube channel, as the on-screen screenshot would show. Bethesda not giving ES Legends its own channel is problematic because it doesn't manage expectations for their existing fanbase, and it also doesn't properly cultivate its own core audience. Instead, you have to rely too much on your name and your brand recognition to get people's feet in the door. Considering Elder Scrolls Legends doesn't really have negative reviews concerning its gameplay or mechanics at this point, Bethesda's poor management of the game and its marketing certainly hurt the game. The game lacked an identity already with its less than stellar art and presentation, but refusing to give the game its own channel, its own identity, and sort of its own spotlight makes ES Legends come across as a corporate attempt to cash in on a widely successful, new, re-burgeoning genre. ES Legends would yet again return to Morrowind, this time with the introduction of a new expansion in Houses of Morrowind, which would introduce 149 new cards, allowing you to build 3 attribute decks now instead of the previous 2, and allowing you to build decks to up to 100 cards in size. These changes would add a number of complexity to the game and was seen as a positive addition overall. Each combination creates a different unique house featured from the Morrowind lore, like Halal, Tribunal, Daggeth, etc., which would give you a special mechanic, which is kind of basically Hearthstone powers. Now, population on Steam rebounds during this time, increasing in 30% concurrent players. Unfortunately, the following month the game would trend back down to half of that. What came in May of 2018 very likely was the largest change and obstacle to happen yet on the journey. In a shocking announcement, Bethesda announced that they would be transferring their rights to develop Elder Scrolls Legends to a new developer, Sparky Pants Studio. Sparky Pants Studio had a prior history working on RTS titles. This would mean no longer would Direwolf be involved in the project going forward. Concerning the shift, Bethesda VP Pete Hines praised the flexibility of his new client, and we can take this as a seemingly benign statement or occurrence, but what context clues tells me here is that there was a reason that Direwolf was shifted off of the project, and I've got 2 hunches. For starters, Direwolf Digital was a team of card game pros and developers. They weren't just working on Elder Scrolls Legends though, they were simultaneously developing their own card game, Eternal, which would launch later in 2018. Despite Direwolf Digital saying this wasn't a conflict of interest because the games were different, although the games were different and could fulfill different desires, they were both CCGs that launched on Steam. Conflict of interest. But according to Bethesda VP Hines himself, this was not the reason for the change. Not like anyone would really admit that though. It should be noted that although Hines stated that it wasn't the conflict that was problematic, he did then go and mention a singular focus being a strength for the new developer in Sparky Pants, which kind of screams contradiction. The second hunch is simply speaking Direwolf asking for what they believed they were worth, and Bethesda just wasn't interested. Being happy about the flexibility of a new developer makes me think the flexibility could either be time or resources, aka money. Bethesda didn't want to pay Direwolf the appropriate fee, and someone else came in and took the opportunity. The problem with the shift is, as VP Hines said himself, I think Direwolf made an excellent game in Legends that people really enjoyed. It's won Game of the Year awards and has been praised by the community. This is more about the future and where we are headed. What was the future exactly, considering you just handed off the games from the guys that you just complimented on creating the game in the first place, and you just handed it to guys who have most of their experience working on RTS games? You can see it as, yes, they did indeed make a decision for the future, a decision to slowly milk the game for whatever player base was left in the end, considering at this point, not only was the title not going to beat Hearthstone, it was struggling to stay afloat, period. The transition to a cheaper developer or one who had more of a laser focus on the success and profitability of the newly acquired IP that they were working on, ES Legends, was about as business as you can get, and the community was not happy. June 2018 came the announcement that Legends would be coming to the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One platforms. The Bethesda strategy of just launching it everywhere seemingly on full display. Bethesda would feature another trailer for Elder Scrolls Legends during their presentation at E3 2018, and this might have been the worst one yet. Checking the like to dislike ratio in the comments, you can see that the majority of the fans watching the trailer have no interest in seeing a card game. In fact, many of them have no idea what they're even seeing in the first place. You have some zombies calling out, "Test 5, Test 5, Test 5," and the angry mob on the other side yelling curses at Fallout 76, all the while Bethesda thinks it's this brilliant idea to unveil a new live-action trailer for their game that they just handed off to a new developer. Bethesda, or better yet their parent company ZeniMax Media, is a company that has taken outside investment. This means more so than a normal company or LLC, they need to turn a profit and then some to pay off the debt or investors. They were very aware that even in the face of poor population numbers, in order to come out on top profit-wise, you needed to keep bringing in new players and thus new customers. The most effective way to do this at this point was advertising. But would bringing in players be enough if the game itself was unable to sustain the population? And what would SparkyPants' first serious action as a new developer be concerning Elder Scrolls Legends anyway? Rumors were that they were working on a full-scale rebuilding of the game, for better or for worse. Esports might not have been largely profitable yet in the world, but it makes for damn good advertisement. Elder Scrolls would take their first official dip into the world of competitive card games with an official tournament featuring $50,000 and a prize pool for winners at QuakeCon 2018. Dubbed the Master Series, a professional league for card game esports at this point was almost a requirement. But would creating a $50,000 prize pool tournament be enough to get talent interested in the game in the first place? Even if the first place won $20,000, how many hours would that average out to in the end? Compare and contrast that to Hearthstone or MTG, and competitive CCG or TCG players didn't have much reason to hop into Elder Scrolls Legends to play competitively, especially when the viewer numbers, despite very strong Twitch integration on Twitch, being so low, including during the Master Series Championship tournament. Without enough players interested in the pro or competitive scene, you can't, as a developer or publisher, force the hand no matter how much you try to throw money at the situation. Not that $50,000 was a lot of money or anything. $50,000 in fact was a calculated risk, and perhaps playing it safe is a better approach to, as I said before, manufacturing an esports scene with just loads of cash. But $50,000 wasn't going to pull away talent from the other competitors on the market. In the midst of SparkyPants working on a 2.0 client for Elder Scrolls Legends, the eyes that the esport tournament would bring, no matter how little, would be better than nothing. SparkyPants needed to hit this client rework out of the park, and considering how difficult client reworks are and historically have been handled, there was a tough task ahead. According to the dev blog post, SparkyPants was intending on rebuilding Legends from the ground up with brand new code. The update promised to add interesting new wrinkles to the game's meta. September 2018 came along and PC Gamer stated that they were happy with the progress thus far with Elder Scrolls Legends and its subsequent expansions. This isn't the first time though that critics have enjoyed a game that players just weren't as stricken with. The long-awaited rework since handing off Elder Scrolls Legends to SparkyPants Studio would finally launch September 27th, 2018. The overhaul targeted the most visual aspects of Elder Scrolls Legends, being the graphics, the board in which you play on, and the surrounding visuals. Now sure, these visual changes seem minuscule at first glance, but considering the game already had greatly criticized visuals, if the new visual package wasn't up to par or better, the player base wasn't going to be happy. Needless to say, the player base wasn't happy, citing issues such as bugs and the fact that the new update, well, made the game look way more like Hearthstone. It was an update that the player base didn't really ask for, nor did they want. Instead, the player base wanted the prior tech to just be upgraded or amended. Considering that was Digital Wolf's client, and the overhaul seemed to be a best of a bad situation, or a double negative bad situation. This is a very important concept in business. At first glance, you would think you want a game to be unique and different in every different way in a given video game market or business environment. However, Bethesda isn't trying to beat Hearthstone, they're trying to take some of its market share. Bethesda responded to the criticism of the overhaul, stating that, in terms of the look and feel of the game, this refresh was by no means complete. It was never our intention to roll out SparkyPants' new client and call it a day. We're committed to making Legends a game you and we are proud of. This is the first step of a larger plan to improve the player experience. Iterate more quickly and deliver more content, fixes, and balance updates at a faster cadence than ever before. In the meantime, we will continue to address issues like the overall feel of the game, card mechanics, and UI flow. So please keep sending your feedback and comments, we are listening. The fact that the game looked distinctive from Hearthstone and had some unique mechanics that separated the game was, in a sense, becoming a problem. Elder Scrolls Legends wasn't Elder Scrolls enough on its own strength of character as a product, and so the idea was to make the game maybe, well, more like its competitor in an attempt to grab some of that juicy revenue share. At least that's me making some assumptions based on my experience working for a Fortune 500 company in corporate America and my evidence collected thus far. And my personal opinion regarding the aesthetics concerning the new overhaul, which can be largely based on subjective preferences, based on looking at the different versions of the game, we can pick out the largest differences in visual styles of the games. First, the cards and card backs themselves, besides the card's outline, seem largely untouched. Instead, the most obvious changes are the color palettes used. In this screenshot example, The first screen you see is the more neutral color schemes. Sure, it lacks color, but I think that that's not entirely a negative thing because it makes the cards themselves more of a focal point of art. But if you observe the newer client, the bright and colorful palette used is almost overwhelming in some respects. Some colors are almost overly bright seeming, and others overly dark. The contrast has been shifted in a distinctive stylistic fashion akin to Hearthstone more than the mature art featured in the Elder Scrolls franchise. Early test titles such as Daggerfall and Morrowind in particular being very dark games from an art and gameplay perspective. This is a distinctive step towards ES Legends not being an Elder Scrolls game and instead accepting itself as yet another Hearthstone competitor, or worse. In the world of CCGs, while Elder Scrolls Legends was struggling through its new client, Hearthstone was topping 660 million on mobile devices. Direwolf would also step back into the picture with their parallel development alongside Elder Scrolls Legends. Eternal would launch on Steam November 15th, 2018, and it would actually fare slightly better on Steam, scoring a 78% compared to ESL. I must point out that while Eternal clearly didn't put up the same sales or acquire the same population as Legends, Direwolf didn't need to. Their profit margins were most definitely much better now that they were developing and producing their own game. It was a no-brainer for them to branch off and focus on Eternal. Sparky Pants would have another expansion, Isle of Madness, adding more story content and 55 new cards, January 11th, 2019. At this point going forward, population for Elder Scrolls Legends on Steam would continue to downtrend with small short spikes here and there following new expansions, such as the Alliance War expansion that came in April of 2019. With the expansion came 100 new cards, new mechanics, and 5 new triple attribute factions. Elder Scrolls Legends would go on to host another Master Series Championship tournament in the summer of 2019. Peak viewers were at 5,872 players, with an average viewership of 2,913 players. I don't think I need to say that at this point, an esport probably won't work if the game has less players playing it than the people watching it. E3 in 2019 and Bethesda would unveil another expansion for ES Legends in the form of Moons of Elsewhere. They would also prove yet again in the marketing department to be completely blind to their own market. Yet again, they uploaded the trailer to the main Bethesda Softworks channel, which, again, sure it reaches more people, but is it necessarily the right people you want to reach? They did this after the Test 5 announcement. Elder Scrolls Legends' audience was small but loyal at this point, but Bethesda continuing to try and fish for its broad Elder Scrolls fanbase to play a card game was proving to be a stiff sell, with them outright copying the looks of Hearthstone and even going as far to copy the tavern gimmick present in World of Warcraft and Hearthstone trailers. I mean, Hearthstone, no matter how much it annoys people to hear me mention it over and over again in this video, or the artifact death of a game, had this incredible shadow that it casted over its competition. Games like Elder Scrolls Legends were proving unable to escape these expectations and success of the game they were trying so hard to be. It's like they're chasing their own Grim Reaper. Steam reviews much like this one dubbed expansions like Moons of Elsewhere and, frankly speaking, post-digital Wolf expansions balance breaking. Balance is often one of the most obvious telltale signs of a game on its way out, as it continues to spiral more and more out of control. At this point, was the balance an issue? Sure. But the game had a few gaping holes that balancing wasn't going to fix. Speaking of Grim Reapers, the Jaws of Oblivion expansion was teased in September 2019 with a trailer before launching in October 2019. With new Daedra added to the game, a new mechanic dubbed Invade, and 75 new cards added to the game. At this point, as the Steam charts show, however, it didn't matter how many new cards they added into the game, or how many times they wanted people to return to Oblivion, Skyrim, or Morrowind. There simply wasn't enough interest in the game to keep development afloat. By the end of 2019, the game was well under 1,000 players on average concurrently, and just over 1,000 at their peak. With the writing long being written on the wall, Bethesda would announce December 6th, 2019, that Elder Scrolls Legends development would be halted. You can still download and play Legends on all existing platforms and compete online as well as the single-player modes. We will also continue to support the game with monthly reward cards and regular in-game events. New expansions and other future content, however, are no longer under active development. We will continue to provide ongoing maintenance support. 3 years after launching, Elder Scrolls Legends in the winter of 2019 would no longer be supported content-wise moving forward. All announced ports would also be cancelled. Whereas some games who fail rather prematurely can offer partial or full refunds of purchases, Bethesda elected to give returning players an assortment of new cards. But the problem is, people aren't playing the game anymore, so giving them free skins or some cool cards isn't going to suddenly undo the failure or potentially mishandling of Elder Scrolls Legends. Now that might sound a little bit pessimistic, but please take this into consideration that in March 2020, Elder Scrolls Legends launched in Asia. This was after the announcement, so Bethesda not giving refunds for those who spent money on the game makes total sense because, well, they still had every intention of continuing to monetize the game despite not continuing to support it any further. Before I get into unpacking some of the clues we have uncovered this far concerning the death of Elder Scrolls Legends, I want to talk a bit about the things that the game did right. Elder Scrolls Legends has a very respectable single-player PvE story mission component to it, which despite Hearthstone, not many other card games featured or focused on. The first story, for example, the Forgotten Heroes story, which took place during the Great War in Tamriel, was a tutorial that also taught you how to play the game. Finding interactive story-driven ways to teach players mechanics, new mechanics, and really just how to play the game in general, regardless of genre, is a great idea, and card games like Elder Scrolls Legends were particularly apt at that. Elder Scrolls might also have had the least amount of RNG when compared to its competitors, especially games like Artifact, and was willing to take really interesting risks with mechanics such as the dual lane system. Elder Scrolls Legends also, in both my personal experiences and in my research, had more ways to earn free cards than Hearthstone or MTG Arena, and especially Artifact. This doesn't necessarily make collections overall easier to obtain though, which is kind of confusing, because in Elder Scrolls Legends you could have up to 3 of a legendary card, which if you use any card game logic prior, you know how expensive decks could get and fast, and when the power creep is too great for paid decks versus the free decks, the game ends up feeling like pay to win more than free to play. Elder Scrolls Legends also featured comeback mechanics which compared to Hearthstone's RNG were rather tame by comparison, though some still question why even include it in the first place since it was a random thing. The game effectively, in some ways, would play like an MTG Lite, which was both a gift and a curse. That's actually where I think the biggest issue regarding ESL lies. ESL was caught in the middle of appealing to 2 very different audiences. While there's certainly a crossover amongst CCG and TCG fans, MTG and Hearthstone fundamentally were different games. One prided itself on competitive integrity and literally has hundreds of tournaments and thousands of tournaments to back that up. The other, while it does have a competitive scene, has largely always been seen as the more accessible, wacky CCG. So you're caught in between one of the more accessible free-to-play CCGs and one of the least accessible pay-to-play TCGs in terms of complexity to learn and cost to get involved. Borrowing elements from both can yield positive effects, but in the end you can find yourself appealing to 2 completely different audiences, and failing to entice either of them. One final thing I want to add is the amount of players we are talking about here when we talk about the size of audiences, and in particular, Hearthstone and Elder Scrolls Legends, which we've compared a couple of times. ES Legends, according to Steam Spy, had between 1 and 2 million players on Steam in total. This doesn't account for all of the other players who ever played the game, due to numerous platforms, but the point is that the number pales in comparison to Hearthstone's. Hearthstone in 2015 was already breaking 30 million players. If we're being generous to Elder Scrolls Legends, Hearthstone very likely had at least 20 times the audience and population. By comparison, Elder Scrolls Legends was making flint fires, and Hearthstone was cooking with lighter fluid and charcoal. Elder Scrolls Legends' audience, by all estimates, was never particularly large in the first place, which for some people listening now confirms their belief of, well, nobody asked for it. Then there's a case for a bit of red-headed stepchild syndrome. This is something that I've talked about in prior videos. Elder Scrolls Legends is Elder Scrolls mostly in name, and never got the proper individuality, personality, and coverage from Bethesda. This reminds me of other titles much like this, that we have covered before. Quake Champions and Gotham City Imposters had both featured strong IPs that arguably were underutilized. Red-headed stepchild syndrome in the context of a video game development means basically just because a game comes from a big company with a big name, doesn't mean it's getting the same love and attention that other titles from the same developer are getting. If you've been following the story so far, you know that this means that ES Legends, on the strength of its game design alone, would have struggled even more if it didn't have the ES attached to it. Now that we have progressed through the timeline concerning the Elder Scrolls Legends demise, we have reached the part of the video where we combine all of our clues for a final deduction concerning the largest contributing factors in the death of a game, Elder Scrolls Legends. It's time to don that fedora, we've got a mystery to solve. A complete rewrite of the game following a studio handoff resulted in numerous problems and kind of a more generic product. Elder Scrolls Legends, although containing Elder Scrolls in name, felt at times more like generic fantasy at best, with lore only being invoked to sell new cards and expansions. Either Direwolf had a conflict of interest, their own card game, or Bethesda wouldn't pay up, and they took their services right to their pet project immediately after, and who can blame them for betting on themselves, right? Elder Scrolls Legends was like a Magic the Gathering Hearthstone hybrid that failed to fully grasp either audience. The lack of player base and broad appeal no matter how many times they tried to show ads to a bunch of Skyrim players. Elder Scrolls Legends might have had trouble finding its footing in the extremely competitive CCG online market, but due to its sort of outsider status as a game, it was able to take certain risks that other developers hadn't yet taken. Who knows, maybe like the Game Informer review said, if they had taken more risks, maybe it actually would have been better for them. Because whether people like it or not, MTG or Hearthstone aren't fading anytime soon. And behind their enormous shadows, Artifact and Elder Scrolls Legends found themselves being unable to escape those expectations and the constraints that they created. Bethesda wasn't the first to attempt to follow the success of another competitor in a given market, and being unable to find the same. Thanks for watching, guys.
I will be streaming exclusively on Mixer.